Okay, well, we're just going to go ahead and dive on in. Hopefully, the folks who either join later won't miss too much, or they can just catch it online once we upload the recording. So, just a quick introduction. I think I've met with, or most of you, maybe not all of you though, but my name is Meredith Muller, and I'm the Workforce Development Manager here at Salt Lake County Economic Development, part of the Office of Regional Development. And Jayla Lundstrom is our Workforce Development Coordinator, and she worked with me side by side to design and put together this pre-apprenticeship program and the request for applications. We also have Teresa Young with us, who is in our contracts and procurement office. So she is here to make sure that we just follow all the rules that the county has on all of these different things and to provide any assistance in some of the logistics that maybe I can't answer or Jayla can't answer. So great. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. Hopefully you all, got our email, obviously, found the webpage where the RFA is posted and everything, but this is the Salt Lake County pre-apprenticeship program that we started developing last fall. We're using ARPA funds, so American Rescue Plan Act dollars. This is one-time federal funding. And our pre-apprenticeship program, the reason we're doing this and the reason we do workforce development at the county is really economic mobility for the county residents who are most in need. So we have developed a theory of change here that says we'll increase accessibility and success in registered apprenticeship programs for lower income residents, resulting in higher rates of job placement and retention in the construction and building trades and other high demand industries. So this program really focuses on construction and building trades, but folks aren't limited to just that, but they must include construction and building trades in their pre-apprenticeship program design. So again, trying to reach the folks who are most in need in our county, ARPA funds have a requirement to serve folks who are at 300% or below of the federal poverty guideline, and we actually lowered that down to 200% of the federal poverty guideline. So a participant must have their income at or below 200% FPG for the 3 months leading up to enrolling in the pre-apprenticeship program. They must also be a Salt Lake County resident. I think that's kind of understood. And then for our program requirements, again, we must target construction and building trades, but we may target other in-demand industries also through registered apprenticeships. We set a minimum length for just like a single cohort to go through this at 6 weeks, given the different program components and requirements that we have moving forward that we'll go through in the rest of these slides. Because we really just feel like 6 weeks, less than 6 weeks isn't enough time to include everything that we've outlined. We did not set a cap on that. So we really want this to be driven by the folks who are working with the employers, working with the apprentices, and working with in this field, in this space, to really be able to say, like, actually a 12-week program is too long, but a 10-week program is the sweet spot. So we really just set the minimum on that. So here are our 3 main program components. We have wraparound services. So this can be helping folks get into housing, helping folks find childcare, helping folks get reliable transportation. Jayla and I spent quite a bit of time the past few months meeting with between 15 and 20 different organizations and individuals, both in the state of Utah, outside of the state of Utah, learning from national best practices to really understand what it is that folks need to be successful in this program and why folks maybe come to an apprenticeship program and don't stay in that position or don't complete the program. And one of the things that we heard repeatedly was, childcare and transportation are really hard. Mental health support, another one. So this sort of wraparound services is to try to get at all of those barriers that maybe you have a great candidate. They know their stuff, they're a reliable, hard worker, but they just have some things that they just need some help overcoming so that they can come up to work every day and be successful. So our second component is academic and employability skills. Again, through all of our talks, we really heard that some of this like remedial academic skills like geometry or learning different types of math depending on different types of trades that you're going into is really tough for some of our pre-apprentices and now apprentices. We heard that a lot of folks, come into these things sometimes a little bit later, not right out of high school, and they haven't maybe taken a math class in 8 to 10 years. And I know if I was given an algebra or a geometry test right now, I would fail. So just really helping folks kind of go back over those things. What are they going to need to know specifically for their trade and for their occupation that they're going into? And same, there's some English skills. We heard ESL. ESL as a second language was a very big need right now and something that is not really being met. So this is an opportunity for someone to design a program that does meet that need. And we also have employability skills. So folks, when they need, how to show up on time, what to talk about at a job and what to not talk about at a job. Can they make a household budget? Is this maybe the first time some of these folks have had a reliable, steady income, and do they know how to budget that money accordingly? And can they get some support through this program for that? And then finally, really sort of like getting into the actual trades, career training and exposure. So another thing that Jayla and I heard a lot in our meetings was someone will come to an apprenticeship program sometimes and say, "Oh, I really think I want to be a drywaller and I want to get in there." And they spend 3 weeks doing it and they go, "Yeah, you know what, this isn't for me." And so they say, "Well, what about an electrician? I'd love to be an electrician." And they go spend 3 weeks doing that and they're like, "Well, no, this isn't really for me." And it's hard for them and it's hard for the employers and it's hard for the folks running the apprenticeship programs. So we'd really like this program to expose individuals to a minimum of 6 different trades and occupations within construction and building trades. Again, it can be more. You can do those 6, and then you could do something outside of construction and building trades if you'd like. But that could be, going to on-site, looking at like visiting job sites, field trips, having speakers come into a class, mentorship with current apprentices or current, maybe current apprentices or recently graduated, recently completed apprentices. So we're really trying to expose folks to quite a bit, prepare them to make sort of a decision to say, hey, I feel really informed. I know the math skills that I need. I know the trade I'd like to go into, and I have this support on the side to make it so that I can get there. And then this is sort of our final component. It's a piece of the wraparound services, but stipends and emergency funds for participants. So we are doing stipends, weekly or monthly. This can cover the cost of lost wages. This can also cover, maybe the class was when they were maybe performing some childcare duties for their family, and now they need to attend class in person for this pre-apprenticeship program. And maybe those wages can help pay for a family friend or neighbor to watch their kids for a couple of hours a week or something like that. Anything that this person might need, the stipends, as we really don't have a like you must spend it on these things, but it must be used as an incentive for attendance in the program. So if someone signs up for your class and then you never see them, right, we wouldn't want them to receive a stipend for something they're not participating in. So it should be a little bit of a motivator to attend regularly and also support that regular attendance. And then it should also help them just be more prepared to get into that registered apprenticeship program. And then we'll also be doing an emergency fund. So this can be for one-time emergencies. I think we've capped it in the application at around $2,000 per person, give or take. But we're sort of lumping it into saying just an emergency fund. You don't have to have exactly that amount of money for every single person because we know not every single person will need the emergency fund and will not need the same amount. But this should be for someone who says, I finally got a reliable car and I got into an accident and I need a repair, or it broke down and now I can't make it to my program anymore, or I'm in a situation with my rent and if I don't make this month, I'm going to be out and I won't be able to keep coming to this, and this is really going to jeopardize me. This is really um, something for the program providers to decide what they consider to be an emergency fund. I would really like that to be available to students the entire time they're in the program, and then even after the program, if possible, to really support them making that transition into a registered apprenticeship program. So another component of our program is that we'd love to have applicants apply as a coalition. It's encouraged, it's not required, but we are, again, having those 3 components of wraparound services, academic and employability skills, and then career training and exposure. And that's kind of a lot of things for one organization to be doing. And if one organization can, that's fantastic. Apply on your own. We'd love to see that. But we also would love to see you utilizing existing services and partners and organizations in the community. So this could look like maybe you have one organization, a community-based organization, maybe that provides wraparound services, and you partner with maybe an education institution to do some of the academic and employability skills, and then you find industry partners to do the career training and exposure. This could be maybe somebody does 2 of these things, but not one or the other. And we really only define a coalition as a sub-grantee of what we would consider the primary applicant, which would be the grantee. So if you do apply as a coalition, say Teresa, Jayla, and I are applying as a coalition, I would send in the application as the primary applicant. I would be the awarded grantee, and then Teresa and Jayla would be my sub-grantees, and they would get pass-through funds from my original grant from the county. If you're partnering with anybody in an organization that is not going to be receiving a subgrant from you as the primary applicant, then you do not need to list them as a coalition member. There's space in the application for you to list out partners and people you're going to be working with, but unless you expect them to receive some of these award funds, we wouldn't consider them a coalition member. And then we're also requiring an advisory council. So we want folks, this is again a best practice that we heard from a lot of different pre-apprenticeship and other apprenticeship programs in the country, that we want folks to know that this is responsive to industry needs and responsive to employer needs. And so we think this is a great way to do it. We'll have a couple of folks from, employers, a couple of industry partners to really just meet every once in a while, look at the program, look at the outcomes, look at the curriculum and say, are we achieving the results that we want? Are we getting the outcomes that we're trying to in this program? And if not, how can we fine tune and adjust from there? So we have a couple of different goals with this program. Again, this is ARPA funded, so it is one-time funding. Unfortunately, I don't. Let's hope we don't need more American Rescue Plan Act dollars, right? So this is one-time funding. We'd love for this program to put those funds to good use, to test out something. Borrow everything we can from evidence-based, but also test out some new things that we can try to scale, replicate, and sustain long-term with other sources of funding after this program. So we have, those are our evaluation goals. We really want this to, have a change in program or participants' income before and after, and really understand how are the different interventions impacting program retention and completion, apprenticeship placement, apprenticeship retention and completion. And for our programmatic goals, we really want economic mobility for those individuals that come through our program. We want them to come in under 200% FPG and leave saying, I feel much more economically stable, if not at least having some economic mobility. And then we also, again, want to meet the demand for construction and building trades. So we have very high demand industries in this country or in this county. And I think we've all, seen all the building going on in Salt Lake as even just anecdotal evidence that there is definitely a need. I think this is definitely a growing industry. And as a county workforce development, we're interested in meeting those needs. So these are sort of our target outputs for the program. We want at least 200 participants served, so 200 or more enrolled and completed. We want a 90% completion rate of those participants that enroll, which is pretty high, but I think that goes to show that we are pretty confident that the emergency fund and weekly stipends should have a really high impact on that. We also are hoping that at least 75% of those who complete the program will be placed in a registered apprenticeship. And 6 months later, at least 80% of those will still be in that registered apprenticeship. And so this is sort of our program timeline. Our letters of intent, are due on March 20th, which is next Monday. This is optional, but it is a chance for you to kind of test out, and we will provide feedback on those letters of intent. So test out your ideas or ask some questions about your program. April 14th, we will actually have applications close, and then we will make an award announcement soon after that. And then we're looking to launch programs in July of 2023. So it's a pretty quick turnaround. And then you'll see here at the end, we have programs in between July of 2025 and July of 2026. And why is it unclear, right? So we are hoping for programs to be, or we're requiring programs to be a minimum of 24 months long for the life of the program with a max of 36 months. That is because of ARPA funds and just the amount of dollars that we have to give out. We want to give, again, enough time for a program to have multiple cohorts go through and see those results and track those students. But the funds have to be spent by the end of 2026. So if we end programs in the middle of 2026, that gives us a good 6 months to still do follow-up evaluation on all the cohorts that went through. Okay. So I see the questions in the chat. I'm almost done, and then I will come back and answer those questions. So application checklist, again, make sure you read that request for applications. It's very thorough. I hope it's not too long or too daunting, but we really encourage everybody to read that before they complete the application. And then there's also a budget and staffing template that you can go through, that you can put in your budget, your coalition partner or coalition members' budgets if if you have a coalition. And then we'll be submitting everything through Smartsheets, and you can find all these links on our webpage that I sent out in my email, and we can put in the chat here too. Okay. So Taylor, I see your question. What happens if you don't meet the completion or placement goals? Yeah, that's a great question. So some of our contracts in the past have had sort of, we have what these completion and placement goals are. And if they're very far off, we can always adjust funding, but that's not something that we want to do or like to do. So ideally, if those things aren't being met, it's a conversation between the county and the grantee to say what's not working, what can be better, what can we do differently, so that we can meet those completion and placement goals. Because usually it's not um, a failure of will, right? It's usually there's a barrier or there's a logistic or there's something we maybe haven't thought of that was in the way, or we need to target funds differently to get to those goals. And then Kelsey, what is the age range that an individual would be considered for the program? So our age range is just 18 and above. We have a target age range of maybe 25 to 30-ish, because we've heard really that that was sort of the age of folks who were coming into an apprenticeship for the first time and sort of needing these extra supports. But anyone 18 and above is welcome. Go ahead, Vic.
Thank you, and great work on putting us all together. I know you guys put a ton of time into this. Are the awards intended to go to private sector organizations, associations, or maybe institutions of higher ed?
We don't have an intended awardee agency type, so it really just depends on the application. So as long as they are here in Salt Lake and are able to accept the funds and execute the program, and if they're a coalition, they're able to do those pass-through grants easily, then we will accept those applications.
Perfect. And then another question back on the wraparound services slide.
Mhm.
Is there going to be consideration to have companies partner with a network of other companies and community-based organizations you guys put together as part of the WISE program?
We actually haven't considered that as like a strength or something that would set an application apart to leverage the sort of existing partnerships of the WISE program. But I think that's a really great idea. So
And
be
then
interesting to see.
last one, sorry, on wraparound services too. I know the Department of Workforce Services has a ton of federal funding in there. And one thing that we did on a Talent Ready Utah grant is we used wraparound services from the grant pool almost as a last dollar in. And so one of the things we were asking companies to do was first utilize the funds within DWS before they drew down upon the grant. And so there still will be gaps, right? But when you're looking at the salary range of the folks that are going to be targeted in the pre-apprenticeship, they would probably qualify for a lot of DWS programs that are already available. So that may be a way to expand the grant fund that you guys are awarding.
Yeah, I think we definitely don't want to be duplicating anything, right? We don't want people to miss out on anything that they're able to get, either any sort of service or welfare program out there. But what we've heard really from the people that we've talked with locally and nationally was the wages go up to a point after this short-term pre-apprenticeship program that they're then priced out of those things. So that's kind of where the stipend or the emergency fund would come into. I mean, if folks are eligible, yes, I think that's definitely part of the wraparound services. And if that's something that they are going to be eligible for past the completion of their pre-apprenticeship program, I would love to see folks sign up for everything they're eligible for. Jayla, were you going to add something a
I was
minute
just
ago?
going to add something, Vic, that note about adding community-based organizations or employer partners throughout the program. We're asking that you apply with that coalition kind of in place, so you at least have, well, again, you don't have to if you're able to provide everything, but have some community-based organizations targeted or identified, some employer partners identified, but those can also grow and expand throughout the program. So we're not expecting that it's going to be set in stone right off the bat, but we're hoping it will be kind of like a cohort, like our WISE model.
Thank you.
Yeah. Kelsey, I see, what happens if an organization receives the funding and the individual pre-apprentice does not complete the program? So again, we don't expect 100% completion rate in the program. And if you have, is this like, let me clarify your question actually. Is this like the total award amount, or are you saying like for maybe in the emergency fund or the individual stipend to that pre-apprentice?
The total award amount.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so if you have you receive a total award amount and you have a certain number of percent of people that don't complete the program, I think that's expected. I'm sure we weren't that thorough, so we can hang out while everyone thinks of some other questions to ask. Pull up the RFA and do a keyword search and ask us some questions.
I have another one really quick.
Great.
How big of a cohort are we expecting, and how big of a group? I mean, if we put together a grant and a program for 5 people, is that worth your time, or do we need to have 50, 100? What's the expectation for size?
Yeah, I think 5's pretty small unless you're doing a really intense and a really short program. That's where we set really just the total number of participants to be served at 200. And then we didn't designate exactly how long a program needs to be and how many people need to be in each cohort that go through that program. So it's up to you, but if an application, if an application comes in at less than 200 participants served over the life of the program, I think it will be less strong than an application that serves 200 and more.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Vic.
Earlier you mentioned as part of the pre-apprenticeship, there might be like 6 or 8 occupations that a student would be exposed to. Do all 6 or 8 of those have to align with an already developed DOL apprenticeship? So let's say, we have electrical, we have plumbing, we have HVAC, sorry. But maybe drywall, let's say, does not have a DOL registered apprenticeship program, but we think that that's a valuable experience for students for exposure. I can't remember if it was 6 or 8, but do each one of those have to be aligned to a DOL apprenticeship, or is there latitude there?
We're really focused on registered apprenticeships, yeah. So I know Melissa Stark at Apprenticeship Utah is actually setting up some navigators to go out and get more and more programs into the registered apprenticeship program and actually register them with their services and the DOL and everything. So I don't think that will be too much of an issue. And it was 6 building, construction and building trades. One of the requirements that we find in a successful program is really making sure that every pre-apprentice gets at least an interview with a registered apprenticeship program. So if there's nowhere for them to interview for a registered apprenticeship program, that does make it a bit tougher. We know we can't say you have to hire folks, but we can at least guarantee them an interview upon completion. So.
I'm going to ask another question. Sorry. How do people know that this exists? I mean, one of the challenges that we face all the time on our team is exposure. I mean, this is an incredible opportunities for companies and people to get involved in this. How are you reaching the masses that this is available?
That's a great question. Are you specifically talking about the RFA or once the pre-apprenticeship program launches, or both?
Yes
Yeah.
to both.
Yes, okay. I think for the pre-apprenticeship program, we're really hoping that we did a great job of, talking to as many people as possible. We're sending this out to as many people as possible and asking them to send it out to their networks as well. And then once the pre-apprenticeship program is launched, I think it will be the county working alongside the pre-apprenticeship program providers to make those connections, to really find the organizations, find where these individuals are, and make sure that we have a great outreach, a strong outreach program. Jayla, did you want to add something?
I think as well, the coalition model, Vic, it hopefully expands that network a little bit more. So if you're working with a community partner, they have their network. If you're working with employer partners, they have their network. So we're hoping that allows outreach to happen more naturally than having to go like pin flyers up everywhere, which we're also happy to do as well.
Kim?
Unmute myself there. You may have said it and I might have missed it in taking my notes, but on the advisory council, is it okay to include money to pay stipends or something to the advisory council for their participation?
I don't think we outlined specifically the advisory council. We did outline funds to pay for like presenters or job sites, or, or field experiences and things like that. But I don't think we have any sort of stipulation one way or the other around that. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I think as well in the application, there's some questions about including apprentices who've gone through the program as mentors to potentially serve on the advisory council. So that's another component of that is included in the application. So just look out for that.
Excellent. Okay.
Well, I mean, we're happy. We're scheduled for another 30 minutes. I doubt we'll fill up that time. But we are happy to take more questions now, or you're welcome to reach out to me and to Jayla anytime. Oh yeah, Chetta, go ahead. Oh, I think you are muted. Yep, there you
You
go.
might have just been answering my question. I'm like, because I know I'm gonna have one. It's just not coming to me right now. So
Yeah.
it was future webinar or other opportunities to ask questions.
Yes, our next webinar is April 4th. Is that right, Jayla? On Tuesday the 4th at 10 a.m., I believe. And you can reach out to me at any time. I'll put my email in the chat for you all. Shoot me an email with any questions you may have. And again, any question that you ask here or in an email, we will post on an FAQ and put it on our webpage for everyone else to see as well.
I do have one other question for you. Do you know what the KPIs are going to be? What is the data that you're going to require to evaluate the program that we would need to collect and supply? That will help me kind of understand the amount of money that we need to, kind of focus, or any effort we need to focus our institution toward that.
Yeah, a lot of that is listed in the RFA.
Oh.
In addition to the slide that we had today too, we have a whole, outcomes and indicators sort of section in the RFA.
Mhm.
And if you have any questions about what's listed there or like how to collect those things, that's something that the county will want to help figure out. We asked in the application, like, do you feel comfortable doing this? Do you have a way to collect this data? Do you have a way to store this data? All those different things. And of course, there's always the outcomes and the outputs that we want to track. And then I'm sure whoever designs their own program will have things that they want to track as well. And so it's
Mhm.
how can we build a system that does both of those things?
Okay.
Taylor, you can go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm curious, you said there was a minimum time for, what was it, 8 weeks or something like that for the program?
6 weeks, yeah.
6 weeks, sorry. Is that a number of hours? Because if we did this as an intensive day class, that'd be a very different thing than if we did it as night classes.
Yeah, we actually set the minimum or the maximum number of hours per week in class at 12 because
Okay.
we were assuming that folks would still need to keep their regular jobs while coming to this pre-apprenticeship program. So it was 6 weeks minimum with a max of 12 hours per week in class time.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Mhm.
Another quick question, is that actual physical attendance, or can we make it a hybrid with online portions of it?
I don't think that we want most of the course to be hybrid. We talked to apprentices who said that, if we had offered stuff virtually or they'd offered sort of like at least the career exposure and the career training, if that was virtual, that they just sort of check out. They don't feel like they get as much. They don't particularly engage as much with the curriculum and the class. So most of it should be virtual or should be in person. I don't know if we have any exceptions for virtual, except possibly maybe some of that remediation skill. If you find like a really great online program or something, we're open to hearing or seeing those things in the application, but we really prefer things to be in person.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you, Vic.
Thanks, Meredith and Jayla. Appreciate it.
Yeah. We'll hang out for just a couple more minutes if anyone has anything, but you're welcome to hop off. Thank you.
All right. Thanks.
I can't think of any other questions, but we will email you if we do have some.
That's great. Thanks, Taylor.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You too.
Same here. I think the devil will be in the details, and once I read through everything and start putting all the components that I have been waiting to get this information to put together, that's where my questions will come. So
Yeah.
you'll probably be hearing from me in some fashion. But
Perfect.
thank you for the involvement in this beginning stages of it, I guess. So
Yeah,
as
I know
part of
we
this
thought
webinar.
that the RFA would be out 4 to 5 weeks ago. It wasn't. It isn't. So it's here now, and we're really excited to have you and have everybody get ready to get this application process started.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you, and I'll probably be on the next webinar full of questions.
Sounds great.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Meta.
Thank you.